I can't do it now. I think I'm not hosting.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm just going to allow 1 more minute so everyone that sign up can join us in the webinar, and I'll start the discussion. Hi, James. Before I begin with the introduction, I just want to make sure that you are good on your side. You can also mute yourself and we can address any technical issues that you're having. Yeah, do you just want to confirm, you're an attendee, so do you want the link for the event? I can send you that in a little bit if you want. I'm just gonna begin the introduction, but I'll wait to hear from you and I'll follow up. So hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us here today for this conversation, which was organized by Griffin Indigenous Public Programs and Marketing Intern Jordanna George. My name is Aliya Boubard and I'm the Public Programming and Residency Coordinator. I'm here to welcome you as well as introduce Jordanna, who will be the host for the Indigenous Curator discussion. So Jordanna George is a Griffin Art Projects Young Canada Works Indigenous Public Programming and Marketing Intern. They grew up in Suk, BC, a member of the Tasauk Nation on their father's side and of Ukrainian ancestry on their mother's side. They are an emerging illustrator as well as comic artist and writer with interest in genre fiction with Indigenous and queer influences. They received a BFA from the University of Victoria in 2019, majoring in visual arts with a minor in gender studies. Outside of their artistic work, they are interested in language revitalization, learning Sonchefun dialect in their spare time. So it's with great joy that I pass it to Jordanna now. And
hi everyone, I squacho moksain, I kunas konlangatle, I squaquans techel, Seat Indigenous Curators discussion. Hello everyone, it's good to see you all. Welcome to Indigenous Curators discussion. Jordanna George, Thanasne, Chisalea Sanlaktasauk, Chiisan, the Griffin Art Projects. My name is Jordanna George. I'm from the Tasauk Nation and I'm the Indigenous Public Programs and Marketing Intern here at Griffin Art Projects. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that our work takes place on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Stalo nations, to whom we are deeply grateful. As well, we'd like to thank Canadian Heritage, North Vancouver Recreation and Culture, and the Freybe Foundation for their continuing support of our public programs. A few quick housekeeping notes before today's presentation. If you'd like to see live captions displayed for today's presentations, you can enable this by selecting the CC Live Transcription button at the bottom of your screen. And if you're experiencing any technical issues with the Zoom interface, we will also be live streaming the event on Griffin Art Projects Facebook page, so you can watch from there as well. And I'm just going to put the link for that in the chat. Great. So lastly, I'll mention that there will also be a chance at the end of the presentations today for audience questions. So if at any point throughout the presentations you have a question for our presenters, feel free to type it in the Q&A dialog box, which is also at the bottom of your screen. So without further ado, I will introduce our event. Today we'll be joined by 3 Indigenous curators, Lorilee Wastasecoot, Aliya Boubard, and Jocelyn Piirainen. And they will discuss their approaches to curation of Indigenous art within a field still largely dominated by colonial values of art, culture, and space. Galleries and museums hold a long history of showcasing Indigenous artworks as detached from their creators, as relics of times past, and held to definitions of art and value not compatible with Indigenous cultures and value systems. In reality, Indigenous art is still widely practiced in both traditional and innovative ways, and Indigenous artists and curators are reclaiming control over how their art forms are shown to the world. Our presenters will be providing insight into their past projects, curatorial methodologies, and about the overlap between Indigenous art and the Western fine arts world. So first, I will introduce our first panelist, Lorilee Wastasecoot. Lorilee Wastasecoot is an Ininu Esquo. Lorilee's ancestral roots stem from Peguis First Nation, York Factory, and the Red River in Winnipeg, Manitoba, where she grew up. Lorilee relocated to Victoria, BC in 2010 to pursue her education and holds a degree in political science from the University of Victoria. In 2021, Lorilee was given the inaugural title of Curator of Indigenous Art and Engagement at UVic Legacy Art Gallery. She has curated major exhibitions such as We Carry Our Ancestors in 2019 and On Beaded Ground in April 2021. And she is currently working on a solo exhibition, Walking Through My Fires, coming April 2023 with Kwakwaka'wakw artist Francis Dick. So I will now pass it to you, Lorilee.
Hi, everybody. Tanze, Nitsikasun Lorilee Wastasecoot. Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. I am the curator of Indigenous art and engagement at the Legacy Art Gallery. I just quickly want to say thank you to Jordanna and Lisa and Fawn for having us here today. I'm really excited to present with Jocelyn and Aliya. I am an emerging curator, I'm presenting today from the lands of the Lekwungen speaking people of the Esquimalt and Songhees Nation. And I'm just really grateful to be here. I love living on these lands, and I love the work that I get to do with Indigenous people and Indigenous artists. I am, as I said, I came here in 2010 from Winnipeg and got my education from the University of Victoria as well as Camosun College. And I actually started out at the University of Victoria as a work study student in 2016. So, and I was given this position in 2021. So I'm in the second year of my my job, going on 3 years, working with the university's collection. So I'm just going to share a couple of slides with you today. And this picture is kind of explains how I got my start doing this work at the university as a curator. This picture is a picture of myself and my cousin Bertha and a survivor, Amelia Wavy Saunders, who became involved in the repatriation of these children's paintings that the University of Victoria was in possession of. And so through this rematriation work, these children's paintings were returned to survivors and survivor families in 2021. And so it was a very deeply personal experience, because my dad had a painting in the collection as well during his time at the Mackay Indian Residential School in Dauphin, Manitoba. And so that's where I got my start in curating. And it was, I was mentored by Dr. Andrea Walsh. And together, she and I worked with survivors to return the paintings. And it was at that time when she created the exhibition, There is Truth Here, in 2017, that she had asked me to curate one section of that exhibition. And that section was included the works from the children who came from my dad's residential school, Mackay Indian Residential School. So yeah, those are my beginnings. I guess I just wanted to share this panel of things that inspire me. I was back home last summer, and I stopped into the Old Stone Church in St. Peters, Manitoba, which is the original homelands of the Peguis people, and walked into the church, and they had this display case of belongings, and in the case there was this beaded panel, and it had no name attached to it. The artist is unknown. But yeah, very inspired by beading, very inspired by Indigenous women and Indigenous women's art. And that includes beading. On the right-hand side is a picture of some caribou tufted moccasins made by my Auntie Jessie McPherson, who is another inspiration in my life. And who actually created these caribou tufted moccasins and then donated them to the University of Victoria's art collection. So very loving, beautiful Auntie Jessie. And so, yeah, that kind of grounds, where I'm coming from as a curator, and the things that I pay a lot of attention to in my work. This was my first exhibition that I curated in 2019, and it was called We Carry Our Ancestors. And for this exhibition, I was still a curatorial intern working at the Legacy, and the reality of the situation is that, sometimes working in these arts and cultures or culture organizations, you don't have tons of staff, tons of permanent staff, and a huge team behind you. So this exhibition was very special in the way in which it got done, because I did most of the programming. I also, did the curation of the exhibition, and then I also did, just the project management, all the other little things that need to get done while you're creating an exhibition. So I also feel like it was a very spiritually guided kind of exhibition and experience for me. My grandmother, Aliya Wastasecoot, was also an Indigenous artist, an Indigenous woman artist who made things by hand. She did moccasins, beading, caribou tufting. And when I was asked to curate this exhibition by my boss at the time, Mary Jo Hughes, she asked me to look at the collection and look for things that were made by Indigenous women by hand. And so at the university, we have a very large collection of baskets, and I just got very passionate about it, thinking about all of the Indigenous women artists whose names are erased when their pieces of art come into collections. And so out of that large collection of basketry items, belongings, there were only 6 6 Indigenous women's names that were attached to the baskets in our collection. And I just thought that that was something that I would like to take a further look at, and why these things happen, how they happen. So I worked with community. I brought many of the baskets out into the classroom, into the community. And we just kind of sat with them and visited with them after them being in the vault for many years, not being seen or being honored or loved. So it was a wonderful, wonderful experience for me to have as my first exhibition. And so this exhibition featured Salish and Nuu-chah-nulth basketry. And I featured the basketry alongside these beautiful black and white photos that were created by Uli Stelzer, who was a German Jewish photographer and who published the book Indian Artists at Work. And so she traveled to Indigenous communities in BC in the 1970s and took photos of them, you know, in their homes, you know, with their families. And I really liked the way that she had presented her photos of these Indigenous artists, because it didn't kind of present this kind of false narrative about, you know, who they were, where they came from. A lot of photographers, you know, in the past who have used black and white photography to document the lives of Indigenous people have been, you know, manipulated and made to fit a certain type of narrative. So that's why I chose Uli's photos. And it turns out that some of the women that were in that book actually had pieces, basket pieces that were in the collection. So it was really special. We have Ellen Jumbo, who was an Nuu-chah-nulth woman, to the left. And then we have Matilda Jim and her daughter, Julianne Williams. And then on the right-hand side, just some basket weaving materials presented by Elsie Charlie, who was another amazing interior Salish basket weaver. So, yeah. It also featured contemporary artwork, contemporary baskets made by Indigenous women today. So this first basket on the left is a picture of Matilda Andrew, who, and it's displayed beside Matilda's basket that she made a long time ago and had gifted to her granddaughter, Brenda Crabtree. And so Brenda Crabtree participated in the exhibition, and she created this basket, the square basket on the left for the exhibition, and it's entitled Technical Chaos. So, you know, Brenda spoke about how important her grandmother was to her, and how important she was to her in her basket weaving practice. And Brenda Crabtree is an incredible weaver and just an amazing teacher. I felt really grateful to be able to work with her, and really grateful that she loaned and trusted me to take care of her grandmother's basket when I was for this exhibition. So was really important for me to make sure that we did have contemporary work in this show, to show that, you know, Indigenous people are still making baskets and you know, taking basketry to another level. Just some install shots of this exhibition. I really wanted a way to connect my identity as a Cree woman to the exhibition, which is why I included some of these porcupine quill and sweetgrass baskets that were collected, and they were made by Indigenous women in northern Manitoba. So, yeah. This next exhibition was my second exhibition. Again, I did a lot of the programming and the project management and curation of this exhibition, but I just want to say, like, the team that I work with at the Legacy Art Gallery is so amazing, and I really rely on them to, you know, help me making these exhibitions possible. You know, a lot of back and forth. I really try to create a more of like a circle kind of colleagues that, you know, we can all talk and discuss these things back and forth. And, you know, I really don't see myself as a curator who is, you know, a boss, I guess, or, you know, this authoritarian kind of figure in the process. So I just wanted to shout out to them because, you know, I really do value their input in the work that I do at the Legacy. So this exhibition featured Indigenous artists beading, Indigenous beaders from some of them are living locally, regionally, some of them are across Canada now. And so this exhibition was created during the pandemic, and it was really just a wonderful, wonderful time to be able to focus our energies on, you know, regional and local artists living here in Victoria at that time. I had a lot of help in the beginning from Michelle Jakes and Eli Hurdle, who helped me kind of, you know, form the ideas around this exhibition in the beginning stages. And yeah, this exhibition was just really, really amazing. I get kind of emotional when I think about it, just how all these beautiful artists just showed up and turned out, you know, their best work for this exhibition. This is a piece that was created by midship artist Audie Murray, and it's called Spider in the Cosmos. And so for the exhibition, I worked with artists and commissioned pieces of work that would go into the exhibition. Again, this was an exhibition that was featured historical works from our collection, but also newly created works just for the show. And so felt really lucky to have this piece in the show by Audie. And this piece kind of speaks to that sort of liminal space between being awake and sleeping. And Audie kind of describing how she was kind of in that space and how she, as she was drifting away, you know, she was feeling like she was drifting up to the stars, and that there was somebody, like there were these old hands weaving and braiding her hair. And then she thought, and then it turned out that she thought that they were actually spiders in her hair. So this is really interesting in that this piece was inspired by that space and that dream that she had. The beautiful photography here is done by another amazing photographer, Kira Kodowski. Another piece that was commissioned and made especially for On Beaded Ground was this piece called Disassembled #1 by Bev Koski. And in the beginning stages, when Bev and I started talking about a piece that she could create, I had sent her pictures of our historical beaded collection from the gallery, and she took those photos, which I have to admit aren't the greatest photos. They're thumbnail photos, but she took all those photos and she ended up creating this really beautiful piece called Disassemble that came from kind of these objects in the collection. Like we had a lot of like really old moccasins, we had a lot of like disassembled moccasins, we had these vamps, like just these single vamps, and and all sorts of pieces. And so what you're looking at here is a piece that is the beginning of a moccasin. So you can see that on the larger piece is kind of like the footing of a moccasin, and then you've got the vamp that's cut out that would be the decorative part of the moccasin. And so I really like Bev's style. It's very unique and a really interesting way of doing that type of beading. So yeah, again, beautiful photographs by Kira Kodowski. As part of that exhibition, I thought it was very important to include the youth, so Indigenous youth. And I worked with Tasha Henry from the Cedar Hill Middle School, who facilitates an Indigenous led Cedar Circle group that is for Indigenous students and their allies to come together and to learn about Indigenous art, values, and for that semester, the students had decided that they wanted to learn how to bead. So I invited them to show their work. Some of the pieces were in progress, some of them were finished, and we pinned them up on a piece of hide, and we displayed them for people to see for the exhibition. And I just think it's really important that the youth are included in these exhibitions that we do, because they really do need to know that they're loved and they're valued, and that that they are the future. And so yeah, really special time working with them and having their piece in the show. We had our own little exhibition opening for us. And as you can see, we got a little cake to celebrate. Yeah. This next slide is what I'm currently working on with Kwakwaka'wakw artist Francis Dick, called Walking Through My Fires. This is a solo exhibition, so it's a little bit different than the larger group shows that I had curated previously. And I'm really loving the process. It's even though I still find that I'm doing a lot of the curating and the programming and project managing, it's just wonderful to be able to work one-on-one with Francis throughout this entire process. I've learned so much from them, and originally had seen Francis Dick's artwork in a gallery here in town, and just always remembered them, and would also see them casually just walking around in the streets of Victoria and downtown Victoria, and I'd be like, oh my God, there's Francis Dick. And yeah, so a couple of years ago, I was looking through our collections database and was looking at the Indigenous artists that make up our collection, and I was just really inspired by Francis's work, particularly this piece, Comes a Woman. So the message and the beautiful, striking image you see here is what really inspired me to, just email her. I had never met her before, but I just emailed her and said, would you like to do an exhibition with me? And that I was really inspired by the messages that she conveys through her art. Very woman-centered, very truthful, very raw. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to putting that show up. It'll be April 22nd of this year, and it'll run till September 8th. And so it will feature a lot of her pieces from our collection, but it will also feature new works by Francis Stick and a large installation, desk installation. And so, yeah, I just kind of want to read this to convey, I guess why I find her work so inspiring. So Comes a Woman is a design I created to honor my journey as well as the journey of other women who continuously search within themselves to gather our own power of spirit, truth, and light, rather than power of deception, exploitation, and darkness. Comes a Woman is a celebration of women's spiritual awakenings worldwide. This woman rises from the water that is alive with vibrant, strong, healing energy and spirit, just as the woman who rises from her. So, yeah, that's my presentation about the type of work that I've been doing and the type of work that I am continuing to do. Yeah, so thank you so much, everybody. Great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lorilee. That was a really beautiful presentation. So I will now introduce our next panelist, which is Aliya Boubard. Aliya Boubard is an Anishinaabe artist and emerging curator from Saging First Nation, located in Treaty 1 territory in Manitoba. She grew up in Manitoba and moved to the Lower Mainland in the fall of 2020, where she is currently living and working as an uninvited guest on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples. In early 2020, Aliya graduated from the University of Manitoba with a Bachelor of Fine Arts. She then enrolled at Simon Fraser University to pursue a post-baccalaureate diploma in Indigenous Studies, which she completed in spring 2022. Aliya has always held an interest in the arts personally and professionally. She's a multidisciplinary artist who focuses mainly on beadwork, photography, and digital illustration. She previously worked at the Canadian Museum of Human Rights in Winnipeg, as well as the Manitoba Museum, and volunteered at the Winnipeg Art Gallery for several years. Upon her move to Vancouver, she accepted the position of assistant curator at the Reid Gallery of Northwest Coast Art, where she continues to work today. Her position as assistant curator led her to explore working as an emerging curator and inspired her to pursue this field as her career. This position also allowed her to curate her first exhibition, Beat and Nostalgia, which ran from May to October 2022. Aliya is interested in focusing her curatorial practice on contemporary Indigenous art. Though she is quite early on in her career, she hopes that she will be able to work with Indigenous artists across the country and use her voice to amplify their work and stories. So I will pass it to you, Aliya.
Hi, everybody. Anin Bojo Wapshki Aganin Indigenous Kaz Saging in Dunji. My name is Aliya Boubard, and I am Anishinaabe Kwe from Saging First Nation, currently living in New Westminster, BC. And thank you, Jordanna, for the introduction and just inviting me to be a part of this panel today. I'm really honored to be here. Like Lorilee, I do have a presentation, so I'm just gonna share my screen. Okay. Yeah, so I will be talking about my curatorial practice and experience as an emerging curator. I will note that because I've really only been working in this field for the last 3 years, that I'll just be focusing my presentation today mostly on the work that I do at the Reid Gallery. And this first photo here was taken on my reserve on my dad's land. And I just wanted to start off this presentation by recognizing my community and my homelands, because that is where I come from, and it is a place that is so important to me. And although I'm working far from home, and as I'm sure many Indigenous people away from their communities can relate to, I am always rooted in my home, community, and family, and they're the biggest inspiration for the work that I do. And I've been an artist since I can remember. I was always drawing and making things growing up, and that was really the decision behind pursuing the arts as a career choice. I love being creative, and I kind of have always known that this is really what I wanted to do. Yeah. So I took my Bachelor of Fine Arts at the University of Manitoba, and the first real experience I had in the arts was through volunteering at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. in their studio programs. And that was something that I really loved doing. I was there for 3 years while also juggling school and a part-time job. And then I went on to work as a retail associate at the boutique in the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. And that really gave me more experience working in a museum setting, and actually eventually led me to working at the Manitoba Museum as the Indigenous Arts Leader Fellow for about a year. And at that point, I really kind of knew that I wanted to work in museums. When I first started my undergrad, I had really no idea what I was going to do with my degree. And I remember telling myself that, you know, if it doesn't work out, I can always just be a curator, because that was like the only arts job at the time that I knew of, not thinking that that was actually where I was going to end up. But in the beginning of 2020, very shortly before the pandemic began, I was accepted into Simon Fraser University to pursue a post-baccalaureate diploma in Indigenous Studies, which moved me from Manitoba to here in the Lower Mainland. And in moving to Vancouver, as Jordanna mentioned, I was also hired as the assistant curator at the Bill Reid Gallery of Northwest Coast Art, which is my current position. If you haven't heard the news, though, I will be moving into the head curator position starting in May, which I am so excited for. I'm really looking forward to this next chapter, and I have so many good ideas, so I'm really excited for that. But my position at the Bill Reid Gallery completely solidified my career choice. Being able to work with Indigenous art and artists is just so incredible, and I've really learned a lot in the last 3 years. Let's just move on. Next slide. Whoops. In the short time that I've been at the Bill Reid Gallery, I've been able to work on several exhibitions as a coordinator and a co-curator, and then also a solo curator. And this was really the first exhibition that I was able to work on. So this was Hands of Knowledge. It was a group exhibition curated by Joanne White, featuring the work of Dale Marie Campbell, Kelly Clifton, Pearl Innes, Arlene Ness, Marie Oldfield, and Patricia June Vickers. And this exhibition really celebrated the traditional knowledge through contemporary works, focusing on the theme of matriarchs as knowledge keepers. So I was responsible for the layout of the exhibition, working with a designer to create didactic materials, and helped to create public programming that related to the exhibition, including in this photograph you see here. We had a day, because this was kind of throughout the pandemic, we invited the artists to speak and engage with the public. So that was really a fun day. Yeah, working with so many talented Indigenous women artists was inspiring, and this was a really great first exhibition to work on. These are just some installation shots of the exhibition. So we had a mix of weaving, of carving, digital illustration, and it was a really good group of talented artists. The next show that I worked on was a wall-made object. And this was co-curated by myself and Beth Carter, our current head curator at the gallery. Beth really helped mentor me through the whole process of curation, kind of from all of the little details to writing text, working with artists and things like that. And this exhibition reflected unique pieces in our gallery's core collection, especially highlighting women artists like Morgan Asoff, Judy Chartrand, Marika Swan, and Dorothy Grant. But it also included archival materials related to Bill Reid that we hadn't shown in quite some time. I really felt that I gained a good sense of our collection while working on this exhibition. Here are also some installation shots of the exhibition in our space. Yeah, and this would have been my first curation project, and it was really great to have Beth to work with as a mentor through this exhibition. And then this is my first solo curated show. I like to say that this exhibition was my baby, because it was just something that was it was a project that was so fun to work on. This is Beaded Nostalgia. This was open at the Bill Reid Gallery last year. And I was so proud of the way that this exhibition turned out, and I was really inspired by all of the amazing beadwork that I had been seeing all over Instagram. And when I had the opportunity to curate my first show, there was really no doubt in my mind that this is what the exhibition was going to be about, around beadwork. So Beaded Nostalgia really focused on the use of contemporary beadwork as a connection to the past, our homelands, and our memories. And there were 4 featured artists in this exhibition, 3 of whom you can see in the photograph here: Audie Murray, Hazel Wilson, Nico Williams, and Serena Steele. The piece we had by Hazel Wilson was actually part of our core collection at the gallery, and we hadn't shown it in quite some years, so it was really special to be able to include Hazel's work in this exhibition. Each of them had unique, skillfully created and thoughtful pieces in this exhibition, and the detail that went into every piece was definitely appreciated by everybody who came through and saw it. But in addition to the 4 artists, this is just some installation shots. So Serena's work is on the left. You can see Hazel's beautiful robe there. And then just some more installation shots. You can see that beautiful beaded chair, which everybody mentioned when they came through the exhibition. They just loved so much. That was by Nico Williams. And it was a full beaded chair. He even beaded the cup holder, which was just incredible. And then Audie Murray's work, as Lorilee mentioned, she worked with her, but Audie is such a great artist too. I was really happy that, that I was able to work with all of them. But in addition to the 4 featured artists, I showcased beaded earrings from 50 Indigenous artists from both Canada and the US. And being a beader myself, especially a beader who makes beaded earrings, I knew that I had to highlight the importance of this growing medium of beadwork. So we put out a call to submissions for artists to submit their earrings for the exhibition, and I actually had to sort through something like almost 200 submissions, and it was so difficult to kind of choose 50 from there. But the interest was so overwhelming, and I was really honored that so many beaders wanted to be a part of this project. Yeah, so this is an installation shot of me installing the earrings and then the finished product, which was so fun. It's definitely, beaded earrings are something that I think I will eventually come back to in the future, but yeah. And then working with Nico on Beaded Nostalgia led me to working with him on another exhibition and another opportunity to collaborate on his next upcoming solo show in Montreal. Bindigid Guaya Trespassing was centered around Nico's incredible beaded camping chairs, so the one that you saw in the photo there. And I was asked to write the curatorial statement for this exhibition. This series featured 3 beaded chairs with the flags of Canada, the US, and Quebec, which explores the relationships between colonial nations and their encroachment on traditional territory, specifically in the areas of the Great Lakes. So you can see in the photo on the left is the installation shot of the beaded chairs. So he did the Canadian flag, the Quebec flag, and the United States flag. And then on the left there, when he installed the Canadian chair in Beaded Nostalgia, he actually had a tarp underneath the chair, and it had a star blanket design on it. And he was hoping to have a star blanket for every single or each of the chairs. I guess the artist who he worked with on that piece kind of went MIA, so he only ended up having 2 in the end, but he created it into this amazing little tent in the back corner of the exhibition, which was really fitting. It was talking about the homelessness, Indigenous homelessness, especially on our own territories. But I really love that he was able to include that, especially kind of just added another layer to the exhibition. But he was so kind to invite me to the opening of the exhibition in November, and I felt really honored to be able to work with him on this project. He was just so supportive and inviting me to hone my curatorial skills. There's a photo with me and Nico on the left, and then he also beaded these little privé signs. So Nico is based in Montreal. Obviously, there's a lot of French speaking around there, but he incorporated that into his exhibition. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah, sorry, moving so quickly, but I just wanted to mention, in addition to the curation work that I do in my role at the Bill Reid Gallery, I also am the coordinator of our workshops, and I work with, I help to do other public programming in the gallery. And in these two photos here, these are two markets that we held just last year. These were the first two Indigenous markets at the gallery. We had first a beaders market in August, which was in relation to beaded nostalgia, which was still on at the time. And then we also had an Indigenous artisans market in December, which Jordanna was also a part of, and it was a vendor. So there were Indigenous vendors for both from Vancouver and other parts of the province. And both markets brought in a few hundred people to the gallery, which was so incredible. And I was not expecting. Both days were very chaotic, but just so much fun to do. And it was great to see not only the artists be able to share their work, but also network with other artists and get back out into the community again, especially everything with the pandemic happening. Yeah, so that was really fun. And then also, of course, our workshops are another aspect of my role, which I'm really proud of. And in the time that I've been at the Bill Reid Gallery, we've held a variety of workshops, from everything like weaving to beadwork, sewing, painting, and printmaking. And I have just a couple photos of some examples. So on the left here is a group photo of the participants from the weaving workshop and their completed projects. This photo brings me so much joy because I just love how proud each and every one of them look. And it was an incredible workshop. We held it over 4 full days, and the participants had the opportunity to use this workshop to learn new techniques and skills while they worked on their projects. They were helped all throughout the process by Chief Janice George and Buddy Joseph, who are incredible weavers themselves. Yeah, so that was really fun. And then on the left, or on the right, is a mini hide pouch workshop with Athena Pika, who is an amazing emerging artist. And then on this page, just some more photos: Coast Salish printmaking with Elliot Whitehill, and then a copper arrowhead workshop with Erin Nelson Moody. So yeah, it's been really great to be able to work with these artists and bring them into the gallery and have them interact with the broader community and be able to share their skills. So that is something that I've really enjoyed doing. And it's especially moving from Manitoba, coming here to the coast, where I didn't feel like I knew anybody. In doing these workshops, I definitely feel like I've gained a sense of community in working with so many of these artists. So it's been really great. And I look forward to what the next chapter of my career at the Bill Reid Gallery holds. So yeah, that is my presentation today.
Awesome. Thank you, Aliya. That was really great to see all the stuff you've been doing. So we have one more panelist today who I will introduce now, Jocelyn Piirainen. Jocelyn Piirainen is an urban Inuk currently living on Treaty 1 territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and is originally from Iqaluit, I hope I said that right, Cambridge Bay, Nunavut. She is an associate curator of Indigenous art at the National Gallery of Canada in their Indigenous Ways and Decolonization Department, and previously worked at the Winnipeg Art Gallery and its new building, Kamayok. When not working as a curator, her artistic practice involves analog photography and film, experimenting with Polaroids and Super 8 film, as well as honing her crochet and beading skills, mixing and overlapping textiles with language revitalization. Over to you, Jocelyn.
Okay, yes. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Jordanna and Griffin Art Projects, for inviting myself and Lorilee and Aliya to chat this afternoon. So my name is Jocelyn Piirainen. I am urban Inuk, originally from Iqaluit, which is Cambridge Bay in Nunavut. I am currently in Ottawa on the unceded Anishinaabe Algonquin territory. I'll be moving here actually very soon, as I recently was appointed the associate curator within the Indigenous Ways and Decolonization department at the National Gallery. Yeah, and like Jordanna was just saying, I was previously at the Winnipeg Art Gallery and its newest building, Kalmayok, which is their Inuit Art Center. Yeah, and so I also have a presentation too. And it's just going to take a little moment to start that up. But yeah, so I was just thinking about it, and I've been curating now for about 7 years. And I kind of very much fell into this position of being an art curator. I initially started out sort of doing film programming for different film festivals in Ottawa, and kind of fell in love with that whole aspect of kind of curating, you know, curating short films into these kind of longer programs. And then I was asked to work on an art show then, the kind of smaller art show at the Saw Gallery that's in Ottawa here. And it was Indigenous pop art show called Neon Indian. So that was my very first kind of curating artwork. Then from there, just little contracts here and there, and as much as I wanted to stay in the arts, it was a little bit of a struggle at times, but then I got through it. And again, somehow just found myself at the Winnipeg Art Gallery just before its new center opened. So 2019, I was hired on as their assistant curator of Inuit art. And so my very first show that I was very again, very, very happy to be working on was this Small Worlds, which was Inuit miniature carving. When I first looked into the gallery's collection, so the WAG itself has, one of the largest collections of Inuit art nationally, if not internationally. They have close to, I believe I think they're getting up to about 20,000 pieces altogether of Inuit art, which is huge. So, it can be very overwhelming to kind of start curating from the collection. Where do you start, really? And so when I first started, I kind of spent my very first week down inside their vaults, kind of looking through everything, looking through all the boxes and pulling out all the drawers with the prints and everything. And then I found this really wonderful collection of all these tiny miniatures, both from the WAG's collection and the Government of Nunavut's fine art collection that is being held at the WAG, being held on a long-term loan. So I kind of fell in love with these miniatures. Most, I think, probably were only about, I think the largest probably was maybe about an inch or so. In height and diameter. I put together about a little over 100 miniatures from 19 different Inuit communities within Canada. And the majority of these were small ivories with some stone and bone pieces in there. yeah, I just fell in love with the amount of detail that some of the artists would get into with their miniatures, you know, on that small of a scale. It was really wonderful. And I thought that, again, yeah, as a very first exhibit when I was there, yeah, why not miniatures? You know, they really deserve their spotlight too. And then we will go to the next slide, please and thank you. There we go. Thank you. Yeah. So another kind of collections-based exhibition, excuse me, is Nuliayuk's story. This one as well just drew from the collection that they have. Sorry. And it's all around a particular story that is that a lot of Inuit actually know. And I've through my research, I found that there was different variations of this one legend around Nuliayuk. Nuliayuk being this mythical creature. And her name is most commonly known as Sedna as well. She's known by very different names when you go across to Greenland and even Alaska. She has different names, and different regions too. She'll have different names, but again, more commonly known as Sedna. So this one was a lot of fun. It included, sculptures, carvings, textiles, prints and drawings, and then I also added in an audio version. There was a really wonderful CBC presentation of the telling of her story, of how she came to be this kind of this myth, this Inuit story, this story that has been passed down generation after generation for Inuit. So I thought that was a really wonderful, another wonderful exhibition. That furthered, the kind of exposure of Inuit storytelling and its history, how it's been passed, passed down through different generations, and over time, how the story variations change, and it was just another very fun exhibition to work on. I realized that one of my other favorite exhibitions working on at the WAG in Kalmayok was, I didn't include it in this presentation, but I had the opportunity to mentor a young curator, and actually some of the photos were in the social media for the Griffin Art Projects that were shared in the last couple of days. But it was around this young curator. They wanted to really delve into the traditional Inuit tattoos and the practice as it once was before kind of missionaries came in and banned the tattoo practice. So the curator Zoe Ohkanoak, which they are from also my same community, they really looked into the artwork that involved any sort of tattooing processes, and what goes into those traditional tattoos and the meaning behind them. And it was a really beautiful, another beautiful exhibition, and I was very happy to be a mentor on it. I really kind of let them curate the whole show themselves, and I wanted to have them, kind of experience what it's like being a Inuit curator within a large institution, and make sure that they were supported through everything as well. That they felt like that they did have, again, that support coming from an Indigenous background. That to me was really important for them, to learn that, when you're coming into institutions, sometimes it maybe you're not feeling so safe in them, and so I definitely wanted to make them feel safe, because these experiences can be quite intimidating when you're, again, kind of thrown into things, and it's your very first show, and like, what do you do really? And yeah, I was very much there for them, and I'm all for kind of mentoring the younger generation as well. It's really, again, it's the youth and these very emerging curators who are kind of the future within the arts institutions. So we're going to go into the next slide then. So one of my kind of non-WAG in Kalmayuk and kind of external independent curating contracts was the most recent exhibition at the Canadian Centre of Architecture, which is based in Montreal. And this was a co-curatorial exhibition with myself and two other Indigenous curators. One of them, they were also Inuit, and the other was a Sami artist and curator. And it was the very first time that the Canadian Centre of Architecture had actually worked with and shown Indigenous works. And I felt very, very, but very much privileged and happy as well to be a part of that team that exhibited this exhibition. Towards Home, or Angli Kamut, it focused on the ideas around what home is for Indigenous folks and Indigenous communities, mostly focusing on the circumpolar north, given that myself and the other co-curators come from that area. It's an exhibition that really takes a look at what home is, what is home to Indigenous folks, but then we didn't really quite offer solutions to homelessness, or but what what the future of architecture in the North could be if you do just kind of start work with the Indigenous communities. It really was kind of taking a look at Indigenous communities and Indigenous architecture now and seeing where it could go, without really giving kind of solid answers on these kind of questions that we were bringing up in the themes. But it was a really wonderful show to work on. It brought in many different media, installation, prints and drawings, again, like I was saying, audio and video. There's a VR component as well. If anybody is in Montreal or is planning on going, it's open until the end of March at the Canadian Centre of Architecture. which brings me to my last kind of point that I wanted to bring up too, and kind of in that same conversation, that same kind of area that I was just saying. With the CCA show, I had actually worked with the co-curators themselves. Aside from myself too, we're really kind of practicing artists. So yeah, the two other co-curators, they kind of first and foremost practice their artwork. One of them is an installation artist over in Norway, and the other is an avid beater, textile artist. Yeah, you know, kind of you name it, she can do it. But yeah, they didn't really see themselves so much as curators. So yeah, I wanted to bring that point up too. So I've been starting to really kind of call myself an artist as well. I had my kind of first exhibition this past summer. These pieces here, these textile pieces here, are crochet pieces that I made in response to the Manitoba Craft Museum's collection, which is in Winnipeg, which it is a very small craft collection, but one that is very, they have very little BIPOC representation. And so they invited a number of BIPOC artists within the area to respond to that collection, and in order to, again, kind of diversify their collection. So this piece here, one of my other interests really too is textile art, but then also, you know, in a lot of the work that I do, both curating and artwork, I try to find, you know, the humor in it. So I set out to crochet this this piece that really kind of using my own Inuktitut dialect. It roughly translates into the live, laugh, love phrase. I wanted to, yeah, again, kind of bring in that humor and kind of turn it on its head a little bit. So yeah, and one last point about that too is that the language itself is, again, whether I'm curating or whether I'm making something, I'm as I'm relearning my own language again. I try to, you know, incorporate that into the shows I'm doing, into the exhibitions, have that language, you know, very prominent and visible. Since I, you know, for Inuit, the Inuktitut speakers are very few, and it's something that a lot of the schools up north, at least, are trying to push for more students to be learning Inuktitut again. And yeah, you know, and I'll say once more, it is up to the youth again to kind of continue these very important, yeah, to continue learning the languages from, you know, from elders, from teachers, from your community. Yeah, so that's me. I feel like I was going a little bit quickly there too, but yeah. As for my current projects, now that I'm with the National Gallery as well, yeah, I've been at the National Gallery since November, so I'm still kind of finding my feet and finding my ways around there. But I'm looking forward to. We are kind of looking into the future at exhibitions for 2025 even. So yeah, just kind of doing a lot of research, in the research phase right now for different artists and curators, and planning studio visits. And I'm very excited to be working at the National Gallery as well, on growing their Inuit collection, and yeah, just learning more as well about other aspects too of Indigenous art. So yeah. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, all of you, Haiska, for all of your thoughtful presentations and for sharing all of the beautiful work that you've gotten to work on before. We have about 20 minutes left, so we're going to have a discussion period, and then after that we'll have a Q&A period. Maybe because there's a bit less time than I estimated for, we can kind of throw them together a little bit. But what I was thinking was that if any of the three of you have questions for each other or things you'd like to discuss between the three of you, please feel free to bring that forward, and you can all have your videos and mics on. And then if anyone in the audience has any questions for our panelists, you can type that into the Q&A dialogue box. So I think maybe just to kind of get the ball rolling and start things off, I can start with the first question, just kind of for all of you. You all talked about your relation to home and how your families, your home communities are always sort of a part of your life and your practice, even if you're living away from that place. So I wanted to ask, how you situate yourselves as curators who are Indigenous but are working on lands that are not your own, and how do you remain accountable to the communities that you work with? Whoever wants to start.
I guess I can go first. It was really kind of a whole learning experience moving out here to the coast, and especially just kind of starting off my career here. But I mean, I work at the Lorilee Gallery of Northwest Coast Art, so it's really what our gallery is focused on is contemporary art of the Northwest Coast, and that is really the main content of all of our exhibitions. With my exhibition, Beaded Nostalgia, sometimes we work with artists who are a little bit out of that realm, but for the most part, it's really focusing on Indigenous artists from up and down the Northwest Coast here. So it's been really kind of, I mean, I do miss home, of course, kind of all the time, and being on here on the coast has really, in a lot of ways, made me a little bit more homesick, but also appreciative of my culture, just seeing the passion and the amount of love that goes into the work that artists do here. So kind of going a little bit on tangent or off on a tangent, but that is always the priority for me. I mean, especially recognizing that I'm not in my own territories, that is always something that I want to be respectful of. And I'm still always kind of learning and trying to be the most respectful that I can, but also like trying to incorporate some elements of me and my own personal identity, especially through beading, which is so great now because beading has been kind of adopted by nations all across the country. So it's something that I feel that we can relate on, but yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll go ahead since I was no, I was actually just thinking too about so I've like I was mentioning, I've been kind of relearning my language, my own dialect of Inuktitut. So I'm always kind of going back to my community and those that I know within my hometown and saying, oh, like, am I doing this right? Is this good? And so I feel like that's the same too with whenever I am working on an exhibit. It comes from the community. yeah, I feel like it comes from the community itself. You know, I really do believe that, yeah, it's not just about me. It's the artists that we're displaying in the show. It's all their work too. You know, it's them that is on display. So of course I would want to be representing those artists as best as I can. And so yeah, it just takes a lot of research, I find, and reading and just knowing who the artists are and how to like best tell their stories. That I think is the most important. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of similar to what Aliya was saying, you know, I've been here for 12 years now, and had come out here as a student, just an adult learner, who was just looking to pursue my education. And you know, I work with this collection that has thousands of pieces created by Indigenous artists. Our focus is on the Pacific Northwest coast. And so many of the Indigenous artists that are in the collection are from these communities here on the island. I'm always so just grateful to the people here and allowing me to live here and flourish. I feel like I'm thriving. Lately, it feels like I've been surviving, but I mean, when I think of my practice here and the wonderful, beautiful artists I get to work with, you know, having an opportunity to support them in their artwork is the most important thing. Like, and being able to convey their stories in how they want their stories to be told. Like, as a curator, I think it's really important that you're not only that consultation is first and foremost, but more importantly, I think collaborating and getting consent is even more important. And so just having, yeah, and you know, I always try to support local artists, local Salish, Lekwungen artists as much as I can, especially, and other artists like from the Wasanich community out on the peninsula. I really enjoy working with local artists, people who, you know, live in Victoria and who are part of our community, which is why I was so inspired to work with Frances Dick, who I see all over town, walking, doing her trek. And she's literally our neighbor who lives about a 4-minute walk from our gallery. So in that way, I feel like the Legacy Art Gallery, because we sit off site and in downtown Victoria, we have a really special place and a responsibility to, yeah, support Indigenous artists from these communities here. And yeah, I just, you know, I also really believe in a lot of like signs and things that can you continue to remind me that I'm on the right path. I feel like we really do carry our ancestors wherever we go, and I feel really happy and grateful to know that to be true in my life. And so yeah, just always remembering, you know, who you are, where you come from, and our beautiful ancestors. So yeah.
Thank you. That's really great to hear. We have a couple of audience questions. Just a reminder to anyone who does have a question, you feel free to type it in the Q&A dialog box, and then I'll read it out loud to our presenters. If you prefer, you can also click the raise hand button, and then I can unmute you and you can ask your question verbally. Just if you do that, know that your voice will be recorded, as our event is going to be recorded and posted online. Before we go into the audience questions, I just want to give one last chance for the three of you, if you have anything you'd like to ask each other. No pressure. All good. Okay, we can dive into the audience questions then. The first one comes from Dragonfly Libelul, and they ask to Lorilee, you mentioned something about a woman who comes out of the water. Just who is she again and what is her purpose? Thank you.
Yeah, no, the woman I mentioned was the female figure in Francis Dick's piece that I showed, comes a woman. And so at the end of the statement that I read, that woman, it's a universal message to women all over the world. And it just the last sentence mentions water, but this woman rises from the water that is alive with vibrant, strong, healing energy and spirit, just as the woman who rises from her. So if I were to share my screen, which I can quickly, it would, I think you're talking about this woman, right? But yeah, that's who the woman is.
Great, thank you for the clarification. Another question comes from Sarah Groves, who asks, thank you for the interesting and insightful presentations. You all work in established institutions built by settlers. If you could start from scratch, what kind of space would you create for presenting Indigenous art and culture?
Well, yeah, like similar to kind of the exhibition that I was working on at the CCA in Montreal. I would say it would be a very safe space, comfortable space that would be inviting to really any of the communities, any of the Indigenous folks that would be coming in to these spaces. Yeah, again, just making sure that that they feel safe, that they feel safe enough to come in and share kind of their own knowledge, and that to learn even from others as well. That's the kind of space that I would envision for a gallery or for another institution, really. And yeah, one where you can also like I was saying before, see the different languages as well. Have the language be very visible too. And again, I feel like language is such an important part for any ages, really, to be learning. And yeah, that would be my space. My vision.
I guess my vision for starting from scratch, I guess, would be yeah, I guess that safety is really important, because when we're talking about things around like Indigenous culture and art and these white spaces that we work in, I think that it's really important to have that safe space to speak the truth, and talk about things like colonization and, look at how these things have come into the collections and how, and so yeah, just being able to freely speak, without fear of being, without feeling like you're in danger of losing your job, or you're labeled as something like an angry Indigenous woman. It's really important to provide that safe space so people can speak freely.
I don't have anything else to add, but I will say that I agree with both Lorilee and Jocelyn.
Excellent. Another question comes from an anonymous attendee, and it's a question for Jocelyn. And they ask, I saw that your role at the National Gallery of Canada, you will be developing protocols and procedures for building the collection. What do you imagine will be your first order of business? What does an ethical and responsible acquisition process look like at an institution like the National Gallery? Thank you.
Yeah, very, very good question. This is something that, again, I'm kind of in the process of looking at. It comes on kind of almost a weekly basis. We, myself and our department, really, the Indigenous Ways and Decolonization Department, our team members really do kind of are taking a critical look into the acquisition policies that the National Gallery has put in place. And they are policies, that have been around for a long time without, major changes. So of course, that is something that we are in the process of dealing with, and again, also looking at ways of how we are going to acquire works by artists, and it involves discussions around who are we including, which communities. First and foremost, which communities do we want to explore acquiring from first? Which communities haven't really been represented historically either, and those are the areas that we would like to kind of focus on at the moment. And so, it's going to take a little bit of time to really kind of have the kind of acquisitions process and the different policies in place. It's going to take time to change those, but we will be getting to that. And again, just really taking a look into the National Gallery's collection too, and seeing where we don't have that representation from not only Indigenous but BIPOC, LGBTQ areas and communities, and not just within Canada, internationally as well. Seeing where we do lack pieces from artists, and where we can just grow. Again, it's going to take a long time for that change to kind of come, but I'm very hopeful.
I'm really excited to see where that goes, not just at the National Gallery, but like across the whole fine arts world in general. One more question from Annabella Alfonso. They ask, I'm working in the public art realm and learning about best ways to relate to, work with, and include Indigenous artists and group into the public art processes, particularly at a municipal level. In your experience, what has worked best for you as a medium to, one, reach out to, and two, encourage continuous participation of Indigenous artists and communities into curatorial and programming initiatives? If you need to read the question as well, it is in the Q&A box.
For me, I don't really have much experience. I've worked with artists and kind of just reach out to them through email or Instagram. A lot of artists nowadays are all on social media, usually if you find them. but in terms of engaging like broader community, just making things accessible, which means like free, waiving costs for Indigenous community members, or just making it feel like a more safe, accessible space. I think that that's something that we're trying to do with the Lorilee Gallery, is ensure that, Indigenous community members feel like they can come to our gallery and not feel intimidated by the fact that they're in an institution, which is a place where a lot of Indigenous people feel uncomfortable. So yeah, just ensuring that you're being respectful and making things feel as accessible as they can be.
Yeah, I agree. Like some of these processes can be quite cumbersome and complicated. I think putting a public call out through social media is the way to go. I've been a part of processes at the university that put out public calls to Indigenous artists as we are doing some work on campus in some new buildings that are going up. And so I think it's really important to make those calls out on social media, because I mean, as people, as Indigenous people too, that's how I remain connected and find out what's going on here and what's going on there. And that could be through TikTok or Instagram, Facebook. And also these processes that you have in place, making those accessible, making them not write, 5 pages on, their art practice. So access to information, having an easy process to go through is also important. So, yeah.
I don't really have much more to add to that too. I mean, other than I think, also making sure that like that things are clear for artists as well, and like, clearly kind of indicate like what it is that you're really looking for a project, and what are those outcomes. It's going to take, this long probably to do it, or however, just making things really clear and concise for artists, just to so it doesn't feel like there's any like kind of making sure that the artists themselves too feel like they know what they're doing. And that's all.
Awesome. Well, I think that's the perfect place to wrap it up for today. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for Indigenous Curators discussion. And we hope to see you all at our next event, which is on April 2nd, Conversations on Collecting, featuring gallerist Hugues Charbonneau and collector Yves Pierre-Louis. And I'll put a link to that in the chat box so you can register. And a reminder that our gallery at Griffin Art Projects currently has an exhibition, Aliya Boubard Conundrum. We're open Friday through Sunday, noon to 5 p.m. And you can find out more about Griffin by subscribing to our newsletter at the bottom of our website, which I will also put a link to in the chat. And one last note that comes to us from North Van Arts. North Van Arts currently has a paid opportunity for an Indigenous guest curator for the upcoming show Pushing Boundaries. Pushing Boundaries is a biennial open call exhibition to showcase emerging local and national contemporary First Nations, Métis, and Inuit artists, makers, and craftspeople. This exhibition is designed to celebrate contemporary Indigenous art practices fusing modern and traditional creative techniques. So the deadline for that is Friday, May 12th, 2023, and I will put the link for that as well. And High School Elena, thanks for listening, and thank you to Aliya, Jocelyn, and Lorilee for sharing all your work with us today. And goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.